Is Easy Clap choking?
I think it's been choked. Oh, nope.
No. They still have a chance here.
What can we say? This is a Clown Fiesta, boys. We.
And there's the reroll. This seals the deal.
That is the only way it could have ended.
I swear, we're almost out of the dredges of the Advanced Division. That's not to say I dislike Noot Noot, otherwise I wouldn't have put so much time and effort into it, but it is kind of hard to give an in-depth analysis when the team exploded mid-season. So just like Easy Clap, we'll be judging the original generation of Noots and analyzing what we can from after I took over.
Despite Noot Noot as a brand having existed since Season 0, the team going into Season 1 was not the same organization. That would be Crest, and we'll go over them a few days down the road. Instead, a new challenger decided to take up the mantle of Noot Noot and create an entirely new roster underneath a familiar banner. With Saito as manager, Rose as his assistant, and Bun as the team's captain, they were already off to a hot start. What's more is that the Noots were calculated to have the overall first round draft pick, with all the team's protects being taken into consideration. That meant that they'd have the cream of the crop to pick from, and grab an anchor to build a team around. They most certainly didn't waste any time in picking up Basilisk, who is considered by many to be one of the best main supports in the entire league. Baz and Bun having pre-established synergy from playing together in Season 0, as well as the added familiar face of the Season 0 champion, Neglect, Froze, formerly of Rio Redemption, and Pixel Storm from Easy Clap. This team had established a strong core that had placed them firmly in the top few spots of everyone's preseason predictions.
Despite all the high expectations for Noot Noot going into the regular season, and even despite everyone expecting some of the early opponents like Chengdu and Crest to pose a challenge, I don't think anyone fully expected Noot Noot to fall flat on their faces as hard as they did. The level of talent was undeniable. They were star-studded to the brim, and yet they couldn't even manage to pull it together. The team didn't even show up to their match against Z9 in Week 3. They forfeited due to not having enough active players. Rumors were circling around that the Noots weren't scrimming at all, and only half a playable roster were even trying anymore. Early signs of burnout and fatigue started to shine through, and it became apparent that if someone didn't whip the team into shape, the super team of Season 1 would soon fall to their own devices. Thankfully for Noot Noot, however, someone did step up and down. Saito resigned as manager and handed off the reins to Rose, who immediately dropped everyone who was no longer responsive. While the new pickups weren't quite as highly rated as those they replaced, at the very least Noot Noot would now have players who'd show up to scrims and, more importantly, games. Noot Noot returned from their week break after forfeiting to C9 and utterly crushed the slowly rising Hangzhou Bark as well as Easy Clap. Middle to lower end opponents at the time for sure, but the Noots were finally starting to live up to the potential everyone knew they had. If they could keep this momentum and discipline going into the second half of the season, there was a very real possibility they could climb their way up the advanced rankings and actually contest the top teams. That's if they could keep the ball rolling. Rose had whipped Noot Noot into fighting form in time for the last 2 weeks of the first half of the season, but they'd need to put in a lot more work and more consistently if they wanted to stand a chance against the majority of their division. Chengdu was making large moves during the mid-season break, and Hangzhou was continually looking better every week, despite their recent loss to Noot Noot in Week 5. However, according to the players that were on the team at this time, Noot Noot did practically nothing during this time. No scrims, no VOD reviews, no planning or scouting whatsoever. They were going into their Week 6 rematch against the Chads completely blind. Despite the momentum built up over the last 2 weeks, this was not boding well for the attempted up-and-comers. And of course, with the lack of preparation, the inevitable happened. Noot Noot lost in spectacular fashion to the new and improved Chengdu Chads, and the team's morale was at an all-time low. To make matters worse, Rose came down with an extreme physical illness, meaning that they couldn't focus on managing the team anymore. In favor of Rose's health, a new manager was sought out by staff. Unfortunately, during this time, all 3 of the star players, Neglect, Basilisk, and Bun, left, leaving the team in shambles. Ironically, the latter 2 were immediate choices for the next manager of Noot Noot, so having Neglect retire completely and Baz and Bun leave for Chengdu and Z9 respectively, this left not only the team with no idea of what to do, but staff as well. It was at this time, just a few days before Week 7's match against Crest, that D'Artagnan stepped up to the plate. Not entirely sure what to do about his new position as manager, nor the gaping hole in the team's roster, he, alongside with his new captain Meta, got to work. The contrast between the star-studded lineup Noot Noot had at the beginning of the season versus what they now showcased was dire to say the least. They were not going to be winning the Advanced Division, and it was uncertain if they'd be able to take another victory throughout the season, with so little time to mesh as a team. But nonetheless, the team persevered. Under the leadership of Dart, and with the help of some new pickups such as Pooter Scooter and Little Pants, they actually managed to show signs of cohesion every now and then. Unlike their counterparts in Easy Clap, Noot Noot actually had some time to improve and grow as a team, and while they would finish out the season with just 3 wins, they earned those wins through hard work and determination.
The quarterfinals came upon Noot Noot, and to no one's surprise they fell against the Chengdu Chads. They put up a good fight on the first few maps, but by the time the third and final map was played, it was obvious they could only hold out for so much longer. The team would later look back on this match and blame themselves for trying to play strategies that they were not as comfortable on. Though looking at their opponents and how far they climbed through the playoffs bracket, it's reasonable to say that the Noots were simply outmatched this day.
Noot Noot is incredibly hard for me to judge, slightly less so than Easy Clap, but difficult nonetheless. The roster that closed out the season under the Runaway impersonating banner was not the same one that took the stage just after the draft, and it's not entirely fair to criticize them as such. Whatever the reason, be it for lack of motivation of the players, poor scouting during the draft, or just not having enough of a fire under the team's ass to get the team moving, the original roster failed, and hard. Such potential utterly wasted on a lack of practice, and it's possible we'll never get to see such a stacked roster on paper as that one ever again. On the other side of the Noots coin, you have a motley crew that truly pulled the best out of a terrible situation. D'Artagnan and the rest of the team at the end of Season 1 earned a ton of respect for what they managed to accomplish. Given more time, and they may have been able to better perfect their craft and put up more of a fight against the middle-tier opponents. At the very least, they could have come up with a stronger variant of their now infamous bunker strategy. Maybe we'll be graced with a revitalization of the most recent iteration of Noot Noot in Season 2, as the team did stick together briefly to play a few games in the Rose Cup, meaning there is definitely hope that a redemption is on the horizon. Wouldn't that be something? A season where Noot Noot can take to the stage and be a consistent competitor with the best of them. Here's to hoping. D.